Marie Fellhauer was proud to serve and protect the greater Los Angeles community as a police officer with the LAPD. Well, in 26 years, she had experienced some community members disrespecting police officers, but what she couldn't accept was what happened in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. When violence shook Los Angeles, she witnessed members of her own police force taking a knee to the BLM protesters. This was in spite of BLM's mantra, the only good cop is a dead cop. Well, Marie is joining us today to tell us her story, coming up next. Welcome to the Moms for America podcast. Each week, special guests tackle the issues facing the moms of America today. Discussions include personal stories and advice on how moms can build a strong foundation of faith, family, and freedom in their homes and country. Hi, moms. I'm Debbie Carlitis, and welcome to the Moms for America podcast. I'm so glad that you are joining us today again. Right here at the top of the show, I always want to invite everyone to like and to subscribe to the podcast. We are on all formats, YouTube as well, Rumble, BitChute, all that stuff. Would you please subscribe and like? And then, of course, would you please share this with your mom friends? We have a great podcast series here, and we would love to have you sharing it with your mom friends. Also, I do want to invite all the moms that are listening to join us here at the Moms for America movement. We are moms uniting all across the country, uniting for faith, family, freedom, and the Constitution. So please join us here. Check us all out at momsforamerica.us and find out about Moms for America and how we are here to help you in your journey through motherhood. Also, if you have a topic or an idea for us to discuss on the podcast, would you please email me at podcast@momsforamerica.net. I would love to hear from you and get your suggestions. On to today's program. Marie Fellhauer grew up in the lovely beachside LA suburb of El Segundo. She expected to raise her family there and live out all her days in her favorite hometown there. But today she lives in Tennessee as part of the growing number of people who don't want to raise their children with the extreme progressive politics that have literally infiltrated California. For 26 years, Marie was a police officer with the Los Angeles Police Department, but she left the job that she absolutely loved when California's leftist ideology invaded the police department. Well, welcome, Marie, to the Moms for America podcast. We're so glad to have you joining us.
Thank you.
Would you, okay.
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. Okay. I'm sorry I cut you off there, but I'd love to get a little bit about your family, Marie. Tell us about what your tribe looks like there. Kids, husband, community, where are you at and what's going on?
So I'm married. I've been married for 21 years. We have a 7-year-old son, and we recently moved to Franklin, Tennessee from Southern California, my hometown of El Segundo, where I was born and raised and lived there for 50 years. And now I hope to spend the next 50 here in Franklin.
Nice, beautiful community there. So yes. I know everybody is kind of fleeing the communistic states and going to lands of free. I'm in Illinois, so I know what you're talking about from right. Leaving California. But I'd love to get into a little bit about you being a police officer, your story, what you experienced as a police officer. Did you always want to be a police officer? Let's start with that. I mean, that's a high calling, and thank you for protecting and doing what you've done for so many years.
Oh, thank you. No, I didn't always want to be a police officer. I went to school and I got my bachelor's degree in mathematics with a minor in physics and astronomy. And shortly after I graduated from college, my mother passed away, and I was kind of forced to just find a job. So I went to a recruiter and they found me a job, and I worked in the corporate world for about 2.5 years. I was a junior buyer and then kind of thrust into the buyer position at this computer system support company. I wasn't happy there. It wasn't my dream job. I really didn't know what I wanted to do after college. I was going to take a break and then go back for my master's. But as life would have it, I ended up being at a car show downtown LA, and LAPD had a booth, and a woman at the booth said, "Have you ever considered law enforcement?" And I recall kind of looking down my nose at her and thinking, no, I don't want to be a cop. But I came home from work a few days later after taking the packet from her. I looked through it, and there was a sheet of paper in there that said, "Take the test any day of the week." And so whatever day of the week it was, when I was home from work and I was sitting on the floor doing my bills and, my pay this bill, my shred that, that whole scenario. I looked at that paper and I saw that on whatever day of the week it was, that test was at 7 p.m. or whatever time it was. And I literally looked at my watch and thought, I could make it over there.
Yeah.
So I went and took the test, and that night they schedule you for an interview. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed. And about 4 months later, I was marching around the academy at 4 a.m. thinking, why aren't I home in bed? So
wow.
kind of fell into it.
Fell into it.
I fell into it, and then I fell in love with it.
Right. That's what I'm wondering. What an incredible journey. Because isn't it so great when you fall into something unexpected and then you just realize that God opened up those doors and you probably would have never seen it, never would have done it, but the door opened and you walked through it. How was it though, being a woman looking at becoming a police officer? I mean, was that complicated? Was it challenging? It's got to be different for men and women, obviously, when you go into law enforcement.
Very different. And I can say this about LAPD. They've gone to great strides and lengths to make sure that women are treated equally. But there's always that faction of people who, on both sides actually, who just want to be harder on women, especially when you're a very feminine woman. So I struggled with that at different points in my career. Of course, when I was successful, it was because of my looks. And when I failed, it's because I was weak. So you don't get the credit except when you fail. So I didn't fail very much. I'm not saying that, but there are people that kind of take that stance where if you do something really well and you get rewarded for it, it's because of your looks. So I did have that to deal with. And the way I kind of dealt with it was I just killed people with kindness. I'm not going to sit there and defend myself. I worked super hard. I loved my career. I loved the LAPD. I love serving the public. And so that's just part of who I am. And I think that's because of how I was raised. My mother was the first woman to graduate as an electronic technician from the U.S. Navy. And during the Korean War. And she ingrained in me a strong sense of service. And to the point where she, not having a whole lot herself and raising children on her own, would always volunteer and do things for other people. And she taught me to have a very strong sense of patriotism, a very strong sense of service back to your community. Yeah. And so that all kind of played into, I think, my love for my career.
Isn't that true, right, Marie? Moms instill those values, virtue and hope and patriotism and love for country and respect and honor. That's what the mamas do. So your mama gave that to you, and then obviously you've passed it on to your family and others that you touch. So thank you for that.
One of the things I like to joke about is I'm torturing my son the same way my mother tortured me. She would take me on Memorial Day. She would take me to the National Cemetery, and she'd walk up and down the aisles. And maybe this adds to why I ended up majoring in math, but she would stop at any tombstone or headstone that said they were killed in action. And she would say, how old was that man when he died? And I calculated, and it was usually between 18 and 19 or 18 and 20 from the various wars. And she would start to cry. And it really instilled something in me. I didn't understand it when I was a kid. Of course, I rolled my eyes. I'm like, okay, Mom, can we go? I wanted to sleep in on my day off of school, which I didn't get to do. So now I do the same thing with our son. Every year, even when he was in a stroller, we took him to the National Cemetery, and he gets down and we thank our soldiers for giving their lives for our freedoms and things that we get to celebrate here in America.
Love that. Another great idea for our moms, to just make this a part of raising their children and appreciating our country and for our fallen soldiers. So another great idea. Thank you. You talked about how you loved your job and you loved public service and you loved what you did as a policewoman. What were some of your experiences like? I guess probably let's start with the good, and then I know that there were definitely some challenges. But being a police officer for you, you really enjoyed it. Like you said, you ended up loving it.
I did love it. I worked in patrol. I worked various divisions all across the city. The only bureau, there's 4 bureaus with LAPD. The only bureau I never wanted to go to was the Valley because I didn't want to deal with the 405. But I worked Central, South Bureau, and West Bureau. I did various assignments between working patrol, the bicycle unit in South Central LA. That was always a good time.
Wow.
I worked undercover vice, where we enforced anything that had to do with sex, alcohol, or drugs. Or not drugs, sorry, sex, alcohol, or gambling. Drugs were with the narcotics, but we did a lot of shared resources in terms of undercover officers. And then I was a detective. I worked major assault crimes, got to work on a couple of high profile cases that turned into homicide cases. So I was the beginning of it. And then once it went to a homicide, when they die, it goes to a homicide detective. But I was pretty honored to be on a couple of really high profile cases. And then I worked internal affairs for a year, worked the field as
what a career.
I worked the field as a sergeant, loved that. I love getting to know people and talk to people out on the streets. And I remember as a sergeant at Southeast Division, I would come back to the station and my lieutenant would say, what are you doing, Marie? You're out talking to people out in Jordan Downs, which is one of the, I think it's gone now. It was one of the prominent and dangerous housing projects in the south end of LA. And I would just get out and chit chat with people. And he's like, you work in LCAR, which means you're by yourself as a sergeant. What are you thinking? And I said, I'm just talking to people. So it's always been my way. And I think, I think that's the way the department, LAPD, is going anyway. But at that time, it wasn't usual for a sergeant to get out by themselves. So I think that played into part of the culture of LAPD, but also being a woman and that I was by myself and I'm out there, in the middle of the projects chatting with people. But there's video cameras and that's how they could see that I was there doing that.
Right. Well, women are nurturers, right? We're so relational. So wherever we go, we take that with us. And I'm sure that's what made you such a successful policewoman, is that you took that caring perspective with you. You saw quite a progression of ideals and ideology happening in the police department. Did you start to see a change in the community, how they related to police officers? I know we want to get into George Floyd and all that, but could you see some of these problems coming? Was there starting to be a disrespect for police, or was there always a certain level of respect and disrespect? For me in my household, I'm like, I see the police and I'm like, thank you, Jesus. But I know that's not how it is in all communities for different reasons, by the way.
And I'll acknowledge this, the LAPD, for being as large of an organization as it is, its ability to affect change and affect change quickly is pretty phenomenal. I'll credit them for that. And I know that LAPD has some mistakes in their past, and they'll probably have more mistakes in their future. But the department as a whole works really hard to avoid those and not repeat them. So I'll say that. But back to your question, when I started with LAPD, when I started patrol, it was 97. And I remember waving at a little boy. I was at a division called Newton, which was affectionately called Shootin' Newton at the time. It was one of the busiest divisions in South LA. And I waved at a little boy and he gave me the bird. And I remember kind of turning to my training officer and I'm like, what? And he goes, oh yeah, that's normal. And this boy was maybe 9 or 10. So there's a portion of cultures that hate the police, and perhaps some are justified, and I think most are not. I think there's a big misunderstanding between police and some cultures that we police. LAPD works really hard on with constitutional policing, which is making sure that people that you stop understand why you stop them, that you are respectful, that you give them a voice. There's all these like things that go into that. So I think LAPD does a really good job, but I think that's across the nation and certain cultures. There's been a deep hatred for police for a long time, and it's just kind of been inculcated into children.
Right.
Through seeing, their uncles get arrested, their dads get arrested, their moms get arrested, whoever the caretaker is get arrested. And to them, they don't understand. And, when you've got this generational kind of mindset of hating the police, it's natural for them.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately,
while you can roll your eyes at a child giving you the finger, I don't blame him or her because they don't know any different.
Right.
So
well, let's fast forward to the summer of 2020. That was obviously a very tough year in the wake of the death of George Floyd, riots. How bad really was it? I mean, we all witnessed it from our television sets and social media. I'm sure it was as bad, but worse.
Yeah, it was pretty bad in LA. And I thought it was kind of interesting because on social media, my local social media, when I commented on anything that people were saying, oh, this is mostly peaceful protests, I said, I'm out there every night and it's not mostly peaceful. Maybe during the day when moms and kids and parents are out, it's different. But at night, I personally witnessed M80s. Bottles of urine, firecrackers, rocks, people carrying rebar that they were, carrying as a weapon. So and then not only that, there were deposits all around the city of LA of rebar, bricks, and other things that we located when we would go through and sweep areas. So I was
so deposits. Those were like holding
deposits
areas
of weapons, things that look like most people just look at it and go, it's a pile of bricks, but where'd they come from? And there's 3 or 4.
Yeah, we heard about that. Right.
Yeah.
And they were getting delivered in some places, right? And just set up.
I saw it firsthand.
Yeah.
So but I was out there every night. I had a mobile field force of 60 officers, 6 sergeants or detective supervisors, one or the other. And then I had an assistant with me, and I was the mobile field force leader. So I saw things firsthand that directly contradicted what was covered on the news.
Yeah.
And during those riots is kind of when my mentality changed a little bit. I had planned on retiring at 50 and entering a drop program, which is a deferred retirement option plan, where you can stay working for 5 years and get paid and collect your retirement. And it ends up being a net zero cost to the city, but it maintains personnel for a longer period of time. So it's a great program that kind of is a win-win on both sides, for the city and for the sworn officers. So I had planned on doing that. And
you planned on retiring in your community.
I'm retiring. I thought I was going to stay a few more years, at least 2 or 3 years on drop, to kind of build up a savings account, if you will. But in 2020, when I was out there and I saw my chief, various commanders, and various captains take a knee for Black Lives Matter, I went home and I told my husband, I said, that's it. I'm done on my 50th birthday. I don't want to drop. I don't want anything. I'm done. I'm not staying anymore.
That was it.
That was it. That was my deciding moment, because I realized that the department no longer stood for the values that I had.
Right.
And when I came on the department, one of the policies that was taught to us and was still in the manual at the time of the riots in 2020 was that in uniform you never take any political stance. Now, I'm not I'm not going to accuse everyone who took a knee of thinking that it's a political stance. I think that some of their hearts were in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that BLM was a farce. I knew that they don't care about Black lives because I spent years in the South End of LA where Black boys, young men, were killed, shot and killed, stabbed, run over by cars during street races, whatever. All these dying children, and never once was there any kind of Black Lives Matter movement. Not only that, the local media won't even come to those neighborhoods to cover it. No one covers it.
So you saw hypocrisy.
Oh gosh, so much. It's just like Chicago. There's the black crime. No one talks about that.
Right.
So this whole BLM thing was just ridiculous to me. Yeah. So
you probably had seen some things kind of coming up through this too, that you were was there kind of a shift already happening and then this was it, or was this the beginning of the shift for you?
No, it wasn't the beginning. There were other things. The city of LA is run by a mayor and a city council, and the chief of police is appointed by the mayor. And so the chief of police is kind of stripped of their rights to do what's best for law enforcement and for the community. They are beholden to an elected official who has no experience in law enforcement, and a police commission made up of 5 individuals who are from various facets of life. But there again, most don't have any experience in law enforcement. Yeah. So, and they are also appointed by the mayor and city council. So
strings are attached. Yeah.
There's always been this detachment of the really the upper echelon of leadership over our chief and our command to what really goes on in the streets. So it happened. It started happening a long time before that, but 2020, I think I was just nearing the end of my career, and the money to stay in the drop just wasn't enough of an incentive to make me stay any longer. And this on top of the fact that I really didn't want my son to be raised in the environment there in California.
Right. So
my hometown, El Segundo, also, I got an email because my son was in preschool at the time, which was through the school district. Mm-hmm. And we got an email from the superintendent that said, and I'm not quoting, I'm paraphrasing, something to the effect that due to the violence against people of color by police in our nation, El Segundo School District stands firmly with Black Lives Matter. And I was like, wow. And so that kind of happened around the riot time. I can't tell you which one came first, but it was all around the same time. And I just remember thinking, I'm done. Because the thought of moving out of state was scary to me, because I was sad that my son wouldn't go to the schools that I went to. I was born in El Segundo, raised there. I thought I would die there. But as soon as I saw that email, along with the BLM kneeling by my department, I was kind of done. That was the final straw for me.
Right. And I'm sure you were even concerned about your safety, right? I've heard a lot of police officers saying that these progressive ideals come through police departments in cities, and then they back off on supporting their own police and trying to help them stay safe. And you've got this major collide in the field that I can't even imagine is very difficult to function in.
Yeah, it was difficult as a lieutenant to have, my officers kind of come to me and say, should I be looking for another job? When there's the whole defund the police, and these are young officers who just, have a year or two on, and they're worried that they're going to lose their job. This combined with the whole push for the vaccine, saying that they were going to be mandated to take the vaccine and that they would be fired. And there were very strong messages from the leadership of the city and the chief and the command that would be fired if you didn't get the vaccine. And this in the wake of, hearing our mayor, call us killers, it was just a lot going on at one time. And I was in the twilight of my career, and with my son and my husband wanting to get out of California, it was just the time to go.
Right. It was the right decision for your family. Was there a major exodus from good police officers with a long history of being respected and honored in the community? Was there a lot of police leaving like you did between vaccine and safety and BLM and all this? What did you see?
I can't tell you it was a mass exodus, but I know it was a mass discussion.
Yeah.
And I know that there was an exodus.
Right.
I think the retirement numbers went up drastically to the point where they were having a hard time backfilling. So I believe they're short like 500 or 600 officers right now. And with the rate of people retiring, because people are just tired of, the policies, they're leaving, they're not able to hire at the attrition rate. So it's caused an issue, but I can't speak to specific numbers. I don't want to say the wrong.
I think just the point is people left.
Yes.
If they could leave and they could retire, if they could move. I know it happened here in Illinois. If people had a year or two to retire, they just weren't going to deal with either a forced vaccine or, the city not or the state not supporting them and putting their lives in jeopardy.
Exactly.
So, a lot of these a lot of careers have been really hurt by the fact that we're defunding the police, soft on crime, vaccinations. I mean, this has been a huge blow to not only just about every workplace, let alone police. I mean, you kind of felt like this was always a great career to go into, and that people aspired and wanted to be police officers. And now people just are, the draw's not there because they're talking about defunding them and not respecting, their position.
Right. And it's kind of a blow to the officer's ego. And these guys that you think look all, rough and tough out in their uniform, when they're in the station, it's kind of a safe space. And they'll come and they'll talk to me, and they've told me things that, how they feel. And, people forget that cops are people too. Cops are human beings with feelings, and, when you feel like you're not valued, it's hard. And it's not, and I would tell them, I said, look, there's a silent majority of people who love the police.
Yeah.
But in that time of the whole BLM and the riots, people were afraid to speak up because they didn't want retaliation, particularly, business owners. So, but I knew that there are more people who want the police than don't. It's just the ones that don't are loud.
Right.
So
and none of us are ever behind bad people. So if it's bad police, bad neighbor, whatever it is, if you're bad, that's a whole different thing. But in general, police, thank you so much for all of your hard work and support and help to communities and to all of us. I know, what would we do without our law officers? I mean, it would just be complete chaos. So
yeah, it's amazing. Something that you said made me think about the fact that no one hates a bad cop more than a good cop.
Oh, I've heard this so many times. I have heard this.
I'm telling you, I can't stand it when someone does something that's embarrassing. So, but the LAPD does a pretty good job about weeding out that kind of thing. So.
So at the end of your career, you decide, not the end of your career, in your career, like you said, and you're kind of in the top of your game a bit. You just say, I'm leaving, moving. How did you decide to make that move, and where did your journey take you?
So a couple of years before I retired, my husband and I talked about leaving at some point because it was starting to get bad. We didn't know exactly when. But we started to move money from California properties to other properties, and Colorado properties to other properties. So we decided that we wanted to live in a red state eventually. And we looked at states that didn't have state income tax. We looked at weather. We looked at school districts. So we found that Tennessee was kind of the middle of the range as far as weather extremes. And so it just became our top choice. We also bought in Florida. Yeah, we knew that we would eventually come here. I was struggling with it because I love El Segundo so much. And as a side note, I also served on the planning commission for 8 years, and I was a city council member for 4 years in El Segundo.
I mean, you're invested, right? This is what's so frustrating when they ruin states.
I love
right?
that city, but
when they ruin states and community, meaning, overstepping government reach or, progressive ideas that just destroy either economically or the safety, and they just come in and they destroy it with these ideas. And you're like, I'm really upset because I've built my entire life here. My family is here, my church is here, my school is here. I wanted my kids to live in the familiar community that I was in. It's frustrating that you have to rebuild and rebuild and live somewhere else. But this is what people are doing all across the country. This just isn't you. This is happening everywhere, isn't it?
Oh, I know. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I couldn't be happier with our choice to be here.
Good for you.
Yeah. And, I've been back a couple of times for training purposes and things I'm starting a business. That's another subject, but I've been back, and when I go to El Segundo and LA, I kind of look around and I don't miss it. So I'm very happy with our decision.
That it was the right time and you have peace. I
And
just
it
was
the
kind of
right thing
thinking,
for our son.
right. And things are different when you're a mom, right?
Mhm.
I mean, for you to be a police officer in that situation as a mother, I'd love to hear you just speak to that, because that's a big concern because you've got a little one.
Yeah. The last 6 months that we were there in California, I witnessed 2 times a transient walking down our residential street, stumbling and, probably high on something. And that's something that I never saw growing up. El Segundo was kind of this little safe haven community. They called it Mayberry by the Sea. And yeah, it's a wonderful town. It's kind of bordered by LAX on one side, a big industrial, not industrial, sorry, but business corporations on the east side, the beach on the west side, and then Chevron Refinery, which was originally Standard Oil. It was the second Standard Oil plant built, and hence the name El Segundo, the second. So this little bedroom community was only 17,000 people, and the entire city is only 5 square miles. So the residential, though, is 1 square mile. So it was very protected and very safe. Growing up, we never locked our door. Everything.
Yeah.
I was out all day. I mean, I'm a
right, but things have changed
all the way. So yeah, things are totally different. So yeah, that last 6 months, everything I was like, okay, it all came into focus, and I was ready to go.
Before I get you for some closing comments on what's happening in Tennessee, because you are now a part of our Moms for America family. Thank you so much for joining Moms for America.
Thank you for having Moms for America.
Yes,
Kimberly Fletcher is so inspirational. So
she is. I mean, she's a rock star. Before we get into that, any closing comments about if maybe to moms that are listening, about teaching their children how to respect police officers, or how we should approach them, or would you suggest going into into the police division at this point? Any words of kind of like from where you were to where you are now? What would you say to the moms that are listening, either for them to help their kids or to consider it as a profession?
I think that you have to pray that this is all going to turn around, that the pendulum is going to swing back. Law enforcement is a very noble profession. It's very rewarding in so many ways, and we need good law enforcement.
Yes.
Just like we need good soldiers, we need the entire purpose of government is to protect its people. So I'm a big believer in military and police. The message I would give to the public before I get to parents and children would be, when there's an active situation and officers, sorry, my cop jargon came out, but when officers ask you to stay back or to stay out of an area, they often can't sit there and explain everything to you at that moment.
Sure.
So I would just ask that you respect their request and realize that they're not trying to be curt or rude or anything else, but they're focusing on listening to their radio, on tactics, their surroundings, everything else. There's a lot of things to pay attention to as an officer, and it's sometimes comes across
challenging.
As they don't care about you or they don't like you. It's just that they're doing so many things at once. They're like, hey, stay back, and they've got to be paying attention to everything else. So that's one message I would give to just the public. To parents and to children, parents, please teach your children that police are the good guys and gals, women, that police officers are there to help.
Right.
And they're not going to all be warm and fuzzy. They're not going to all have the best bedside manner, if you will, but they are all there to help. Yeah. And you're going to have the whole gamut of great ones to, ones that are there to collect a paycheck and they're just doing the bare minimum. Okay, you've got that. But know that they're all there to help you. And if you don't get the service that you want from one, look for another or ask for another. Don't be afraid to do that. But just know that, when we talked about the riots and the whole George Floyd issue that led to the riots, a lot of people believe the media about cops just wanting to get into a shooting and kill someone. I can tell you not firsthand, but firsthand from a friend of mine on the department who shot and killed someone who shot and killed an officer. And he called me this is before I was married. He called me and said, told me what happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And this is before social media. And I remember meeting him at his apartment and he just wept in my arms. And this man is about 6'6", 260 pounds, corn-fed Midwest guy. But he just wept.
Sure.
And he was weeping not only for his colleague who was killed, but also for the family members of that suspect. So just know that no officer wants to be scrutinized like what my friend went through. No officer wants to think about the mother and the father who are going to get that phone call about that guy you just killed. Nobody wants to go through that. And I think people forget to realize that we're human.
Right.
And so I can just tell you firsthand, I've seen it. I've seen it with my friends. I've seen it with officers that I didn't know as well, but I see how it impacts them at work. And
what a tough job. I mean, what a tough job.
Hard. And so people don't realize that. And they think that we're just this like steel thing, and we're not. We're soft and we're human and we love and we care and we realize the impact of our actions. And our actions, don't just end there at the scene. We have to live with the consequences, because if you don't think that these officers who get in shootings or any kind of serious use of force don't think about the suspect and who all was impacted there, they may have a child, they may have parents, they may have siblings, cousins, whoever's going to be going to that funeral. That all goes through an officer's mind. So just know that I tell this story because I want people to understand that. And I think even people who like cops kind of think that we're this tough steel, no emotions kind of thing. And that's just not the case. We try not to show our emotions when we're out in the field. But I can tell you it impacts each and every officer, each and every time.
Yeah. Tough job, necessary job. Here at Moms for America, we back the blue, and we so appreciate the officers that every day go out there to protect and serve. So thank you. Thank you to all the police officers that are listening. Thank you to the members, family members that go out and help protect our communities and our children. So just here in close too, Marie, do you want to just mention a little bit? I know we're going to give out your email. You're now helping at Moms for America. Briefly, there's a couple of bills that are happening. We can't get into it real specific, but you do want to say anyone that's in your county, and what county is it again? Williams?
Williamson County in Tennessee.
Yep.
So I wanted to touch on, there's a State Representative Scott Sapicki. He is sponsoring House Bill 0032, and it's about vaccines and the U.S. food supply and about labeling. Here in Tennessee, our Tennessee Farm Bureau did not support the labeling because they don't want to have to do any more work to label their goods. But we as moms need to, and my call to moms is to think about your child.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there feeding them what you would otherwise think is very healthy food, a salad, carrots, whatever. And they suddenly look at you and say, Mommy, I can't breathe.
Right.
So please, please, please.
They do want to put the hormone in all of our beef, our pork now. So this is something that Moms for America, and this information is on our website, momsforamerica.us as well. This is happening in different states are calling for full disclosure on what is being put in our meat. So this is happening in Tennessee.
Yes.
So they can contact you about this and being involved in this cause as well, right?
Yes, I'll be hosting I'm going to attempt to host a town hall meeting with the Tennessee Farm Bureau if they are amenable to that. I'm guessing they won't be, but we'll see. The other issue I wanted to just bring light to is that, we're here in Tennessee in Williamson County. It's a conservative area politically, which is great, which usually goes hand in hand with, conservative values that include not sexualizing our children. I want you to know that I have confirmed with a Williamson County school teacher that in our elementary schools here in Williamson County, we have pride flags in some of the classrooms. We have trans children at our elementary schools using the opposite bathroom from their gender that they were born with. And it's a problem. So my call to moms here in Tennessee and everywhere is, if you think it can't happen where you are, you're wrong. Right. Moms need to unite. Moms need to fight these sorts of things. This sort of thing cannot be tolerated in elementary schools, especially elementary schools. My gosh. Yeah. So, or any high schools too. So
all across the country, we're hearing that, things are happening in the schools that parents don't know about. So again, parents, be communicating with your children on a daily basis. What are they comfortable with? What are they not comfortable with? Know that you are the parent. The school is not the parent, and be involved. And if you hear of anything in your community, like in this county, get involved. Go to the school, discuss this, go to the school board. And I know that's what you're making available. Marie, can you give them your email in case they want to get involved in your area?
Yeah, the school board meetings are once a month. It's very easy to attend. It's right here in downtown Franklin. My email is marie@hhcurations. That's HHCURATIONS.com. marie@hhcurations.com. And my telephone number, anyone's welcome to call me, is 310-529-5919. 310-529-5919.
Great. And we'll put that up here. And then, as always, we will have you very involved there in Tennessee with Moms for America. So you'll have a page going up on Facebook and a website and all that stuff too. So people will be able to get involved in Tennessee with you. And we've got some other great moms there in Tennessee that are just fighting for parental rights and for their kids' safety and to help save that state and save America. So thank you.
Thank you
so
for
much,
having me.
For sharing your story and I don't know, just fighting the fight. It's moms like you that are changing the country for good. And fighting against the bad.
Yeah, I always say to people, if not you, then who?
That's right.
So we all got to get involved and show up.
You know who it is? It's us.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Maria. What great story. And I don't know, just great information. I just love talking to moms that, just have an interesting background and that, have so much to offer and share and help us understand too, right? We were not there in California. We don't know what it's like to be a police officer. We don't know what it's like to get up and move and transfer and make these changes, but they're the best changes for our family at that time. And then we go and we pick up a new torch and we run forward and change that community out there. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
What a brave woman, right? What a story. And we know as moms, we have to figure out what's the best environment to raise our children. So kudos to you, Marie, for moving to Tennessee and making a new life there for yourself. It sounds like it's going to be wonderful. All right, moms. Also, I just want to mention here, Moms for America is here to help you. I mean, we talk about all of these situations, all of these circumstances, and we have a lot of information for you as a mom. Really, there's a lot of challenges facing us, right? So we have so many resources, webinars, we have all kinds of programs for you as a mom. We say from the kitchen table to Congress, from parental rights to public policy, Moms for America is here for you to help you in your journey through motherhood. I do want to encourage you to stop by our website to, first of all, to sign up for our newsletter. This is how we communicate with you as moms. You go to momsforamerica.us, sign up for the newsletter, and we can communicate with you and provide all of our resources and information on a weekly basis. We also want to tell you about the cottage meetings. This is our signature program. It is 12 lessons, and I'll tell you, the moms just absolutely love this. It is 12 lessons that will inspire and educate you about the principles of liberty in your home and in your community. This program, along with all of our other programs on our website, will help impact your family in a very powerful way. So please go to momsforamerica.us, sign up for our newsletter, and check out all of our programs and resources that are available to you mamas. All right, every week we say this, liberty begins at home, and that you mamas, you are the heartbeat of America, and you are the heartbeat of your home. That's why moms are so important. They are the greatest influencers in their children's lives. I do want to encourage you to join us next week for another inspiring and informative discussion. We've got great podcasts every week. Also, check out our library. Go back on some of our podcasts. We have really some incredible moms that are sharing some incredible stories. We say this every week too, moms. Let's keep changing our world one home at a time. It begins and ends in the home. Thanks, moms, and I'll talk with you next week.